Thank you so much, JR. So listen, guys, I've had the best time today tagging along with Brenda Burnette and her videographer while she interviewed different generational pioneers of the historic citrus families here in Crescent City and nearby environs. So Brenda, before I even introduce you, I want to thank you for doing that, and thank you for shining a bright light on Crescent City and the nearby communities. And so Brenda Eubanks Burnette is the executive director for the Florida Citrus Hall of Fame. She facilitates preservation and outreach efforts on behalf of the citrus industry's rich heritage. Additional programs include oral histories with industry pioneers, educational historical displays, the Florida Citrus Label Tour, and digital photos, postcards, and citrus label collections. She has written, produced, and directed several videos on the Florida citrus industry. She co-authored and designed the sold-out book, Florida Citrus Freight Labels, an Illustrated History, followed by a companion book in 2016 on labels entitled Florida's First Billboards. Her books will be available for purchase by cash, check, or credit card. They sell for $50 each. The reason why they sell for $50 each is because of the quality of the graphics and the color photos in these books. J.R. Newbold, our president, tells me the Green Book is the best historic book he's ever read on Florida citrus labels. And so it can't get a better stamp of approval with that. And so I will now turn it over to Brenda Burnette. Yeah, well, I think we
there it is. Thank you. Pardon.
Okay. Can everybody see this all right? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. We just rolled in here from interviews, so it's a little bit late setting everything up for you. But if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask and stop me when we get through here. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview about the Florida Citrus Hall of Fame first, and then end with the citrus labels. But we started in 1962, and it was an independent committee for the Florida Citrus Showcase, which is no longer in existence like many of our other citrus organizations. But in 2008, we pulled it out from the Citrus Showcase, and we partnered with Florida Southern College to create the Florida Citrus Hall of Fame and Citrus Archives, which are located in a new building that they had put together at that time. And we created an endowment fund there in the Sarah D. and L. Kirk McKay Junior Archive Center, where we actually have students, the fellowship students, and we employ them to scan, digitize, and create a website for us so that we could have a researchable database that could be used worldwide about our citrus industry. And so we raised about $300,000 to create an endowment, and we pay the students. We have 5 endowment fellowships right now, and we pay the students to come in and help us with these collections. And the reason we started doing that was when we created this engaged learning program with Florida Southern College, we were having people come up and give us some of their collections, and we really, we wanted to preserve it, but had nothing in place to do it with. And so we started the students doing the scanning and digitizing, and we have an archival center there where you have records and they can be stored at Florida Southern College in their archival thermostatically controlled area that they have dedicated specifically for paper memorabilia. So once that happened, we had a need to let people know what we were doing and know that we had this rich citrus heritage that we were losing, and if people didn't start preserving it, it would be gone. And we've seen what's happened in this area because of greening, and it's happening to our history as well. So we really got out there to put together this whole fellowship program and to start trying to let people realize that, if you have all of these collections, me with my citrus labels, if something happens to me, my kids don't want that. It's going to go right in the garbage, unless they think there's money involved, and then it's a different story. So I'm a little bit behind here, but anyways, Florida citrus has definitely shaped the state, and even though we're not the player that we once were, it is a rich heritage that needs to be preserved and saved. And what we try to do is to, through these fellowships, they were created from citrus people, Frank Lewis and Frank Lewis Family Scholarship Fellowship. That's two different ones that he provided, and those are $50,000 each. with John M. Kennedy, D. Victor Knight, ourselves, we started with the seed money. Those are the 5 that we have 5 students each semester that we employ, and they get, I think it's $12 an hour now, so that's what they have to do. But the students learn about the citrus industry. They don't have to be in citrus to become a fellow there. They just, it's at Florida Southern College. They just have to be able to come in and put the work together. And so those are some of our students that helped us in the very beginning, and they are still come back to this every year. So in addition to preserving these collections that we have coming in, we also are trying to let historical societies such as this one know. If you wanted to put on a citrus exhibit, we would loan you some of the products and things that we have available. I have a number of different, photo mounted boards that talk about the timeline and history of citrus. A lot of the little tchotchkes up here that showcase some of that, the actual citrus labels themselves. But this is a display we did it out down in Lakeland in a defunct museum there. We created an entire display throughout that museum of art area. We also have postcards. These are from my personal collection. The Gator one, I don't know, some of you may not have seen that, but that's a very expensive postcard in there. They have, they're like the playing cards are. They have different scenes from throughout Florida. I think they're, in playing cards, there are 52 scenes, of course. But this one is, there's 2 that relate to citrus. One is an orange grove and one is a grapefruit grove. The citrus crate labels, that's my true love. That's how I got into this. I was running the Florida Citrus Showcase back in the 80s. One of our fellow members said, why don't we have a citrus show? I said, the citrus label show. I said, I don't know what that is. He said, you're in citrus? I said, I'm really not in citrus. I just started this job. And so that's how I learned about citrus labels, was some of our members that came out, and at that time it was a buy, trade, and sell. And they would just come and show everybody what the labels that they had. And there were over 5,000 citrus labels at one time that were in existence, but we probably only know of about 2,000 now. So if you have any that are in your attics or your garage or your photo books or whatever, you need to look through them, because a lot of times that's how we'll find them. We'll find them at flea markets, garage sales, that type of thing. But we also collect historical documents, advertising. This is something that around here, from what I understand, they originally sold a lot of these houses complete with a small little area for your dooryard citrus. And this might be somewhat like that. I think this is more for groves, but I know some of the housing, that's how they marketed it back then. Come by, live in Florida, and you'll make money while you're living there. You grove next door. But then these are some, I also collected a lot of the marketing that the Florida Department of Citrus did. And some of them are quite funny, but the photos, this is I believe this was in Chicago at the World's Fair. It's in Chicago and New York, but they used to do such nice displays there. They actually even had this one, the Cypress Garden ski team. They had their own little ski show up there. And these are some of the grove photos that we found. This is on the Ocklawaha. Am I pronouncing it correct? Ocklawaha River, where you can see them with the crates there loaded for shipping. And then you didn't bring it in, Cherie, but the one thing I always do try to bring up is that these crates are the crates that the labels are on. The ones that you see the handles on, those are called field boxes, and those are the ones that they pick the oranges in and bring them into the packing house. So 2 totally different boxes. We also have historical landmarks. This is in Umatilla, the Farinas, where they had their little packing facility there. I think they've since moved it. This gentleman is Bob Cousy. If any of you are into basketball back in the day, he was a big basketball star for Boston. And he happened to belong to the golf club that I belong to. And my husband, who was a basketball guy, he went to Rollins College on a basketball scholarship. And he said his biggest accomplishment was holding Dave Cowan to 30 points. So anyway, so he got Bob Cousy to autograph one of my ad I had of him. And the other thing is the artifacts. A lot of these things that we have that people like FMC, they have all these different things that they used to use to create machinery and equipment for the industry. And so the citrus labels, a lot of those are replicas. But then we create special events that are geared towards, again, promoting the heritage of the industry. This particular one was the crate label show and sale, but we also had a memorabilia exhibit. And we really try to work with, throughout the state with different entities to help them do the same thing. I'll actually go in and show them how to, have the label show and sale, contact some of the label dealers I know of if they're available, and have them come in and be here. Like they could come in here and set up. I know Colin Cruz is over in Lake County, and he and Richard could do a show here for you, and you could buy a lot of the labels that very reasonably too. These are the books. This is the latest one, the Florida's First Billboards. This is the one we're working on now, which is not on labels, but it's on our the members of the Florida Citrus Hall of Fame. We just had in 2022, so 2 years ago, our 200th member, and so I've been trying to go through and make sure all the information is correct. And the 200 people, it's been quite a chore. Because when we first started doing this, you would have a card and somebody reading the information who knew the guy. And so it's like, well, that wasn't really true. So yeah, you got a lot of that. This was an exhibit at the State Fair, Tampa State Fair. And that dress was one I wore when I was Citrus Queen. These are some of the members who are in the Florida Citrus Hall of Fame. All four of those guys are in the Florida Citrus Hall of Fame, and the guys in the middle, Jerry Chicone is on the left and Jim Ellis is on the right. They have the two largest collections of citrus labels in Florida citrus labels in the world. And Jerry's are at the University of Florida. So you can go online, look up Jerry Chicone label collection, and it'll come up. Jim Ellis is at Florida Southern College. So all of those, between the two of them, we have around 2,000 to 2,500 citrus crate labels that you could access via the internet now. And if you want copies of those, they'll print them for you. I think it's maybe $15, but they'll print them for you, as long as they're not used commercially. This, I wish I had a bigger card to bring this piece with me, but that is a fully wooden grapefruit press. You cut the grapefruit in half and you put it on there, and it's all wood. Every little piece of it is wood. So people, they never know what that is when I bring it out, but I did not have room on this strip. I also write a monthly column in Florida Citrus Industry Magazine called Pieces of the Past, and I didn't realize how long I've been doing it until I found one of the first ones, but it's been almost 10 years now, and it's just kind of a labor of love for me. But we try to do that and get them into other publications as well throughout Florida and the rest of the nation, actually. So our inductee biographies, we started in 2010, I think it was, actually doing video presentations. Before that, we did slide presentations on each member. And some, as we continue to get more information, being able to put out more information with the new technology, we did better and better jobs. But we started with the biographies and photos for the inductees. And I think right now, of ones that have videos, there's probably around 50 on our website right now. And that does not include the oral history videos. Now this, when you go onto our website, all you have to do is go under, educational or oral history. They should be on the very landing page. But these are a number of the ones that we've done. And I'm sorry to say this is my first time up in this area to do it here. So we've been lax in this because I've been doing it since 2010. So I'm very happy for the invitation, Bob and Cherie. Thank you for including me in doing this, because you guys are going to be up there next. And if there's more that we need to do up here, just let me know, because I'll be happy to come back. So 60 interviews with those right now. I think it's might even be more than that, because we've done some more. We also do the citrus label tours, but before I get into that, there was one other thing I wanted to say, because this year was also the centennial year for the Miss Florida Citrus Program. And that started in 1924. Very first citrus queen was crowned on the shores of Winter Haven, at the shores of Lake Silver. And so we had, we invited as many as we could find to this year's Florida Citrus Hall of Fame luncheon, which is March 1st. That night was the centennial pageant, and it's now affiliated with Miss America. So in 2019, I think it was, the girl who won Miss Florida Citrus won Miss Florida and came in top 15 at Miss America. So you never know who might be, on Miss America next. And this year, because it was centennial, she got a gold crown instead of the traditional silver crown. So it's quite the year. And we're doing a number of different special events to celebrate the centennial. And one was the March 1st was the pageant, and I think 2 weeks prior to that, it's this past year was also the 100th centennial for water skiing. And Winter Haven is the world capital for water skiing, so we taught her how to water ski in 56-degree temperatures. Have to be ready. But Citrus Crate Label Tours, this is something we started in Polk County. And again, it stems out of my love for the citrus crate labels. There's such iconic artwork that's affiliated with those labels that people, whether they're in citrus or not, they're drawn to those images. And so a lady in Davenport with the Davenport Historical Society came to us and she said, have you ever seen those quilt trails up in North Carolina? No, don't have any idea what you're talking about. Well, any of you that quilt, they do little patches. And in North Carolina, they put them on barns throughout the entire state. And people who quilt drive all over the state looking for those patches to find them. So she said, oh, this would be a great deal to do with the citrus crate labels. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm in, let's do it. And so, when we started this industry, it started with the Stanza stores coming over to St. Augustine. They were trading with the Indians with citrus, and so as the Indians traversed throughout the state of Florida, they would drop these seeds as they ate them, and that's where these wild growths started from. And so when we started with the citrus labels, it was in the late 1800s, actually, early 1900s, that the citrus crate labels started. They started in California and then made their way to all the other citrus producing states. And I have to say, California has some of the most beautiful labels that are out there. I guess that's just California. But when they brought this whole idea to us, it was with the Florida Citrus Hall of Fame, Visit Central Florida, which is their Convention Visitors Bureau arm, and then the Polk County History Center. And they put together all of the sites where they would like to see them. I helped provide the labels, and then they went out and targeted specific sites where they got sponsors for the signs, and I helped find the information behind the labels if we could find it. And then once we got these labels installed at all these various locations, we created a map that showed people where these labels were located, so that then they could go ahead and use them to travel the county to find the signs and to see them. And so this is just to give you an idea. This was a brochure that they created to promote the label trail. I left some of the ones for the statewide trail on your tables there. Because that's what we're trying to do is take it statewide. The Golden Holly on the left was the very, very first sign that went in Davenport in honor of Harriet West, because she was the person who came in with that idea. The second one was Polka Dot, which is at the Polk County History Museum. And that was Merce Young, because she was head of the History Center. And those were the two ladies that worked with me to get this going. And right now we have, I want to say, 48 signs. There's even one at the Detroit Lions State. There's actually two, I think, there. See the tiger on the wall? That's on the wall of the baseball stadium there. And because there were a number of ball players throughout the years that had their own label, because they were involved in growing citrus in one way, shape, or form. This is down in Lake Wales, and that was one of the banners that are on the poles. Those aren't the best because you really can't see them very well. I like the bigger signs. 4x4 is the traditional size. And then this is the map that they created. And so this was the very first one. This was a prototype. This is what we used when we went to other counties to tell them about what we were trying to do and to get more interest in it. These are just some of the signs. You can see how big they are. And there's one in Polk County. There's one in every municipality in the county now. Our next one was Manatee County. That's the one sign we have in Manatee County because COVID hit. And that is at their, and that's in Palmetto at their Heritage Museum there. And then after that, we went to Lake County. I've got Vero, I don't have Lake County there right now. Vero Beach, what they did something different. They actually on theirs, this was the front of the sign and this was the back, and they put a little QR code where it would take them directly to their website. Now, of course, somebody's learned how to hack that, so I don't know if we're doing that anymore, but because they would somehow I don't know how, but somehow they would get it to go to their own site. So I don't know if they're doing QR codes anymore. But then they would put a sponsor's name on the front of the sign, whoever was sponsored by. And they have around, I think they have 12 signs in Vero Beach right now. Now Lake County, I think, has done the best job because he has a website that's fully dedicated to the history of Lake County citrus. And he got every single one of his signs. He went to the people who were the families who had those labels, and he got them to sponsor the signs. Each sign runs around $2,500 to do front and back. They're aluminum signs, so they're supposed to last forever. You're gonna have to change out the images probably every 5 years because of fading. But, and then we had dedications at every, he got them all in. There were 24 because there's two labels on each sign. And then he did a dedication in over a 2-day period at each city, and we did that. And you can go on History of Lake County Citrus and you can read all about it. See, they really did a wonderful job. Now this is something where I went and pulled up some of the labels from here. This would be ideal to have this here. And I'm only pushing this because this is how Sheree and I met. I was in Ocala promoting the Citrus Freight Label Tour because it is a way to get people around your county to specific sites and points of interest that you might want them to see. And it is also part of Art in Public Places, which means you can get grants from the state if you try hard. And then there, in regards to some of the labels that are here, these are all different ones, but I wanted to show you a couple. The ones over here, these two, those are what are called stock labels, which means you'll see those images on with a lot of different names because sometimes they might have run out of their labels, need time to get them reprinted, but in the meantime, they still need to sell fruit. So they'll just put their logo or their name across the top, and that image is just the stock label. They keep them there in case you need them. This one is one you see in the middle. It's got a different brand. That's the EMCA MCA and the Swanland. Both of those say Crescent City, but I've also seen that say Dalbora and Company and a couple of other names. And I actually have labels from Cocoa Beach with that same image and everything. So that's something that we're going to find out. I don't know what the MCA means. Nobody seems to know what it means yet, but hopefully this is the kind of thing that when I go and make these presentations, somebody eventually is going to say, I know what that means. And then I get to write that piece of history down and say, so this is another one. So Chase and Company, they were big. They had packing houses in a lot of different areas. This brand in the middle has been used in Polk County here and a number of other counties. And then this is probably one of their, I think that's one of the prettier ones. But the strip labels, which you're seeing here, those were normally used on either tangerine boxes or toothpaste bushel box, but that pass strap basically. Not always, because I've seen them pasted on the ends of the full boxes as well. Now, one other difference, our labels are 9x9s, and on a crate, here it is, for the citrus crate, the end is like this, where it's framed out. If you were in California, it's a 12x12 label, and there's no frame. It's just a box. It's just flat. So if you're ever looking in there, but I have seen that strip straight across there without the 9x9. But if anybody doesn't have that frame on there and they've got a big 12x12 label, that's a California box. Yes, ma'am.
Does that take away from the value of the label if you have shellac all over it and frame?
On this particular one, no, because that one's a fairly rare label. The reason it's rare is because Flo, you can't see it down there. Flo, she followed the trends of the time, and her bathing suit changes. She started out in a big one piece, and then she went to a smaller one piece, but it had 3 buttons, and then went down to 1 button, and then she ended up in a 2-piece. So, yes, sir.
Where were all the labels printed?
They were printed. There were 4 or 5 different places. Tampa was the main one for Florida, and that was the Florida Grower Press. There was the playing card company, I think it's Denison and Company, was up in Tennessee. There was Craig and I think one was in Chicago and another one in California. But there are 4 or 5. But the majority of for Florida was Florida Grow Press. And a lot of the labels, some of the rare labels that we have were when they went out of business for printing, some of the label collectors went over there and picked those up and got all those samples. So that's why we have some of them that are very, very rare that they have. Yes. Yes, sir.
Colors, what they mean.
Yes, so in the case of, well, they're all blue here. Blue would be the grade. So blue would always be your #1 grade. If it was, I think it was red or yellow, red would be #2, was it? And then yellow and green would be #3. And the #3 would normally only be sold in the state of Florida, I think. Is that correct? But that's so, and the reason that was important is because when these labels were used, the fruit was sold in auction houses. So this area is important because this is where a lot of fruit shipped from. You know, they went into the water, they made their way to Jacksonville, made their way up north. And the way they sold them back at that time is they would stack these crates up to the ceiling in these big warehouses. And these guys would go in there, be early morning hours, like, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they would have an auction. It would be like be buying cattle. They would be bidding on these things, and they were looking for either a specific label that they knew or the color of the label because they knew that was grade 1. But they would have a chance to go through and inspect, some of the boxes down on the floor before the auction began, and that's how they would know how to bid. The price changed on a daily basis, and it just depended on who wanted what at that particular time. I might have had a picture in here, but I know I've got a picture of our book of one of the auction houses. And so this is pretty much, we have the archives, which we continue to grow, the label collection, images, memorabilia, postcards, the oral histories. Haven't really talked much about the Florida Citrus Queen memoirs, but we do have started because of the Centennial, an area where we are trying to get as many photos from the women who represented the industry and some of their oral histories from them as far as what they did. I mean, some people traveled around the world for this and some did nothing, just depending on what was happening with the industry at that time. When the freezes came, it was a completely different story than when we were in the heyday. Many of you might remember when Disney opened up and we had the Sunshine Tree Pavilion there. Well, that was sponsored by Florida Department of Citrus, and Walt Disney came in and made the pitch. So that was something that they did for years, and that's where the Orange Bird came from. But the Orange Bird was licensed by Disney, and when that partnership dissolved, so did the Orange Bird. So that was not able to be used in our advertising anymore. And now that there's been a resurgence in the Orange Bird, you'll see them at Epcot and some of all the Disney stores. The Orange Bird is very, very popular again. But because we do not have, so I'll back up one more. The Department of Citrus was funded, still is funded, by a tax on each box of citrus that goes into commercial channels. So when you have a reduction in your commercial output, then that means all the money you had for marketing or doing anything else, research, that type of thing is gone too. So we went, when I was promoting Florida citrus industry in '81, we were looking at, I think we're at 260 million boxes of oranges. And I think this year we're at 17 and 20. That's the difference. And that's just oranges. And in grapefruit, it's even worse. And grapefruit is important because that's a huge export market for us. And both Canada, Europe, and Japan are huge markets for us. Canada, a lot of people think Canadians are exports, but it's North America, but it is an export. But anyway, so when that happened, that all those marketing dollars were gone. And so now we still get a box tax from, but when you talk about that kind of difference, we went from a $62 million budget to maybe 10 or 8. It's a big difference. So that's why you don't see as many commercials on there. Anyways, and that's why she doesn't travel as much either. And then the educational citrus exhibits. Again, we're trying to promote the heritage now of our industry. I truly feel that this Florida citrus and the people who built Florida citrus industry helped shape the state of Florida. So it's very, very important to remember what they've done for us as a state and to promote that history to the rest of the world. And I think that's it. So if you have any other questions, I'm here. Yes, ma'am.
So I just have a question for this group, if you don't mind. I have 2 separate questions. One, if you are from a family that grew citrus in this area, could you please raise your hands up real high? So we can see how many are here. Raise up. Raise your hand real high. And if your family didn't grow citrus, but your family was in a business that had to do with the citrus industry, or you knew people here in the citrus industry, raise your hand. So it's quite a bit of.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And I've heard that before the days of boxes and paper labels, that citrus, for the turn of the century, barrels with a stencil on the head. That's correct. Can you speak to that?
That is correct, and Sheree had a smaller grape barrel. Oh, so there's one of the original ones, the early original ones in the back there. And they started out being packed with moss. And they were, I believe that they were originally nail barrels. And they reused them. Nails came in, fruit went out. Then as the production increased, they built their larger barrels to supply that need. And they went from moss to packing them in like a tissue so that it would help with retarding the growth of mold or anything. If something got damaged, we would keep it contained within that tissue wrap. So, yes.
Do you have any of those label stencils with the barrels in your collection or?
I have a few, but Sheree had, no, it was Sheree, it was JR. Okay, that's it. But JR had a lot of those.
She filmed those.
So, oh, well, definitely passages for sure. But those are hard to come by, and they're easy to damage. But they also, not only just on those barrel heads, but they would also do stencils on, I didn't bring that in, but the field crates, they would have stencils on those too. And every field crate would have to be registered with the Florida Department of Agriculture, as did the labels. So I have a whole book of the labels, for the field crates themselves. They weren't labels, they were stencils that were on those.
I do have a question. I do a little metal detector now and then. I wish I brought it with me, but I found an aluminum tag, 1924. It says 1,800 pounds. Would they have used that tag to like for a total weight of somebody? Have you ever heard that?
I don't know. I haven't seen one, and I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I could. It was found in an area up near Satsuma, it could have been citrus at that time. So just,
Unless they would put it on a truck or something, that's a lot, maybe because each field box is around 90 pounds. So you figure, that's quite a few field boxes. But they experimented with field boxes too. I mean, they went from wood, when wood started getting scarce, they went to aluminum, but the aluminum, as you can imagine, if you took a sharp turn on aluminum, it does with wood, aluminum would slide right off. So that didn't last very long, but we have a few of those in our collection too. Yes, ma'am.
Crates that I've seen on the end of the box, the name of the owner of those is burnt in. It's not stenciled, it's literally burnt in.
Some are stenciled and some are burnt in. It just depends on who it was. And some are spray painted in. That's what the stencil was for. But a lot, I have two that are, there's one out in my car right now that I'm dropping off. This is how funny. So I started dating this guy. He goes, my mom had a field crate. I said, oh, bring it in. I'd love to see it. He gave it to me. It turns out it's somebody on my board that I know that he doesn't have one. His family's been in for years. He had to be the one to sell the property off because the freeze of, I think the last of the 80s killed him off. And he does not have his own field box. And he has a lot of labels too, but not a field box as he has. So I'm dropping that off in our land on my way home, sort of. But I thought that was so neat. Any other questions?
Well,
Oh, you see.
How do you research into the actual work of the designers? For instance, I know my grandparents, my mom's side were seasonal. And I had one of the tags
Well, so grading them is, that's different than packing them. And there's a certain way to pack them depending on what size they are, and they're charged for that too. And we actually, when I ran the Forest Citrus Festival, we actually had a packing contest. Whoever could pack as many boxes in a certain time would, and pack them correctly would win. So I mean, it's quite an art, and to see somebody who's done it for years is an amazing thing. So, yes, ma'am. Well, they used to do that, but then they stopped doing it. But yes, back when we first were shipping a lot, that was in the 50s. And after that, the tissue went away after a while. But, yeah, but, I mean, they were still using them in some houses up into the 50s. But a lot of that was more for gift fruit is the only one that kept doing that. And I don't know if it was that or if it was because when they went to cardboard boxes, I don't know when that change happened. But yeah, when you saw them doing that with the tissue paper, it was amazing. But even without the tissue paper, because they have to put them in there with the blossom and down. No, blossom is the bottom. So anyways, the bottom, the small part is on top. Oh, thank you, Sheree. And there's a small coating, I think it's on one side or is on both? Just one side, I think, yeah, so that the plasticky one goes on the outside, so it keeps any of the, if the fruit were to start spoiling, it keeps that in, so it doesn't affect the rest of the fruit.
When I was very young, there were at least 15 packing houses in the area. Each one employed 50, 60 people, at least, during the packing season, about 3 months. So there was a lot of employment in the area with the packing.
Did they each have their own label?
They each have their own label, and each packing house would have maybe 6 or 8 labels. There are a lot of labels involved in each packing house.
It would depend on the variety of fruit and the grade of the fruit, because you could have one of those labels, like the one on your table, that's a blue one, but he also has a green one, and that would be the lower grade. But it would have the same image, just a different background. And then some of them were sub-exchanges. If they were, when the Forest Citrus Exchange first started, they were a big marketing arm that in I want to say it was 1938 or 51, somewhere there, that they went over to California. Might have been earlier than that, but anyways, they went to California to see how Sunkist was doing their marketing, and then they came back and formed the Forest Citrus Exchange. And then when they did that, they went through each county and created what they called sub-exchanges for each county. And all of these were marketing people that fell into the Forest Citrus Exchange, which was in Tampa. And eventually became known as Sealed Sweet, which was in Vero. And then eventually there's not as many people in Sealed Sweet. Sealed Sweet's known more as Green Yard now than anything else, but it's marketing them. Yes, ma'am.
So as a collector, if you wanted to start a collection, I mean, where do you start? I mean, how do you know which label is more valuable than the other?
Well, basically price, I mean, if anybody's dealing with them, these labels here would probably sell for around $6. But there's a ton of them out there. There's a ton of them out there. You'll go to flea markets, you might find it for $1, you might find it for $3. It's just depends on who's selling them. I've seen my green book, I've seen that on eBay for $300 because it's out of print.
Yep.
So that's going to determine what the price is, the scarcity of the item. So, no, well, they're out of print, but there's so many of them. Some people, what happened was when they made the switch to cardboard boxes, we used to have what they call the box loft, and that's where they would keep all the labels up there. They came in these big stacks that were called bricks, and there were stacks of, I think it was 1,000, but I might be wrong on that. Anyway, so they would keep them up there, and as they made the boxes, they would bring them down and paste them on, and they only were pasted on one end. That was the end that they would show at the auction houses. It was not on both ends. And I didn't learn that until just a few years ago. I got pretty stupid. We written books, I never knew that. But anyway, so when they made the switch to cardboard, now they needed that room for all the cardboard stuff. And so all those labels they took out and burned because they were just taking up room. They had no idea. And was it you that said that to me, or somebody said that recently to me? They had It was Jim Patchett. He said they burned all theirs, yeah. So, because they didn't know at that time that, he said burn 5,000, yeah, it was. Mhm. So again, it's just not scarcity that determines how much they are.
Is there any, a good way to tell, reproduction from?
Normally the paper. These were printed on fairly poor quality paper. This one here, because it's so shiny, is a more recent one. This flow would not have been shiny. It would have been browned on the back because of the age. And legally they're supposed to tell you, but they'll say, but normally it's the very last thing you hear and be art.
Is there a good source on frame?
She's right here. Oh, she's got one she can show you.
That's an original.
Yeah, you see it kind of gets brown on the back there. Normally if it's. So, yes,
And they're very readily available on eBay.
they are.
Well,
They're readily available there, but you'll see a huge fluctuation in price. So before you buy one, do a search for that name that you're looking at, and you'll come in and see 3 to 5 different prices for it. And then like I said, there are reputable dealers here in Florida that would be more than happy to help with that. And I know Paul Cruz he is in Lake County, and Richard Hall is in Orlando. And both of those guys are very reputable dealers. So, and did you have one? No, okay.
I was just wondering if there was a source for cranes, when you start getting more than 2 or 3 of them, that's pretty much just have to have them custom done to frame shop.
That's what I did with them.
Yeah.
But you could get the record frames and float them in there. That's probably the cheapest way I've ever found it. Yes, sir. Right, John Bell does. Yes. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, well, I mean, I was picking up labels from Jerry Tricone to take over to Forest Southern College to get them scanned. And you know, this is Jerry, this is just Jerry. He goes, "You better not get in a car wreck because you've got about $50,000 worth of labels in your car." Thank you for putting that on my mind. So, but they do, they can be very scarce. I mean, I've come across, I came across one up in the north somewhere. I was in an antique place. No, it's up in Kansas City. And there's one in there, and I go, "Oh my God, that's Razorback." And that's an expensive label. I only have one. And I bought it for like $20. And it's worth several $100s. I mean, you just don't ever know. And especially when you go outside of Florida, if they don't deal in labels, they don't know either. And a lot of those, you know, the antique shops, they're just bays that are rented by people. So they might have got it for $1. They're happy to get $20. So it's just supply and demand, I guess. But right now, labels have kind of, they've gone down. They haven't really, and they're starting to get back up again. They go in waves like everything else, I think. But for me, it's the artwork is just really pretty. It's an iconic era. And it really brings back, you know, when you think of Florida, one of the reasons you think of Florida citrus is because of some of these images that are out there. Yes, ma'am.
Can you make merch with your labels for money? Can you merch your labels?
Oh, merchandise. A lot of people have done that. Now I used to sell citrus citrus crate little calendars. I did that I did it as a promotional piece. And I sold them to other citrus organizations, and they would put their name on the bottom of it. And, yeah, because they like to give them out to their customers because it was all citrus. It's fun, hard to find citrus related gift items, that type of thing.
That's one thing you really need to comment, because a lot of people don't realize the Bella Crescent City that you see all over the place. That is actually copyright is owned by Crescent City.
And that is exactly where I'm going to, because I was using Snowboy, and I got a call from Oregon to tell me cease and desist. And then when I explained what I was doing with it, they gave me a letter saying, give me a one-time right to use that. But yes, there are some labels that are in public domain and you can do that. but a lot of them are not. And it's up to that owner whether or not they're going to prosecute or not, but you are liable if they decide to prosecute, so. And I know right now there's several on the web that, I know the people who still own the rights to them, and they just don't want to spend the money to go after them. Because it's, you know, you have to pay money to the lawyers, so not worth it to them at this point. Okay, anything else? Well, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed being here. It's been a great day out. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you for having me.
Brenda, thank you so much. What is the best way, if we have people interested in purchasing your book, what is the best way to do that?
I've got a couple here, but the best way is really online. They can just have it shipped right to them. I have a couple here that
And what is the online, how we reach you on? FloridaCitrusHallOfFame.com. And I really would encourage you to take a look at these books.
So this is the one that's available now. This is the Florida's First Billboards. I always called them Florida's First Billboards because we were out there promoting Florida before anybody else. But this one is unique is because it has some of your early advertising. It's got some of the postcards. It's got some of the actual old letterheads. I come from Winter Haven. I grew up in Winter Haven, and Dick Pope was a huge promoter of the Florida citrus industry. And some of those iconic images that you saw, he had Life magazine. This is like the sunburst that he would do with all the oranges and stuff. But then you have information. These are all in alphabetical order. Tells you a little bit about the label as I knew it. And I was able to find out. And then these are some of the letterheads. Some of the letterheads back in the day were absolutely gorgeous. And some of them had actual labels on them as well, like these. So, and then it tells you a little bit about the history, showing you how they packed it, how they graded it. This is a label that was done after Bill Cody. So well done. But anyways, it's just this information about the industry as much as we could get in there with the artwork. This is the very first one that was done. This is also out of print. These are really not available for sale. You can see how badly this one is. It's damaged. And then this is the one that I've seen on eBay for $300. And this was the first one I did. It's not as good as this one is, but it's still a nice book. And it has different information than the second one does, because I did the second one as a companion piece. But it's done the same way in terms of we've got some of the information about the industry. The black and white ones are ones that were available, fairly readily available. They'd be between $6 and $12 labels at this time. And then again, in the alphabetical order with some of the labels. But does not have quite as much information as that one did. But this one had more information about where you could find museums that had displays and things. This was 1996. This is the guy, the R.D. King. This is his crate that I have out in my car that he doesn't have the bill crate. That's his. So, but these I do have some of these for sale, but they're $100. But I only have 3 with me.
You can get them on eBay too.
No, not those. I don't. Well, if you do, they're not.
Brenda, thank you.